my gosh. You're really close. You just want to be right up in the action, don't you? Can I have this, sweetie?
Can you move? Why are you acting so strange?
Can I have this wire?
Huh?
Just this one? It's underneath your elbow. Is that an elbow? Okay. Do dogs have elbows?
Sex positive culture.
It's my body to give.
Are threesome gifts a thing?
Taking a bra off.
I like your bed.
Horizontal.
This is Horizontal with Lila.
I'm Lila, and I am horizontal in Missoula, Montana.
I'm Lindsay, and I'm horizontal with Lila in bed.
Yes. Yes, and it's so cozy. Horizontal is the podcast about intimacy that's entirely recorded while lying down, wearing robes. This episode was recorded on my Horizontal Does America tour in October of 2017. For 2 months, I circumnavigated the U.S. in a little blue Honda Civic. It was a 10,000-mile solo adventure with 2 intentions. 1, to feel free. And 2, to record with as many fascinating people as possible. Before I left, I knew that I wanted to go to Montana. I'd missed the entire state on my first cross-country road trip in 2009. A friend said, go to Missoula. And by the grace of my friends, go I. So I went. How I came to be horizontal with Dr. Lindsey Doe goes like this. I drove the 6 hours from Billings to Missoula and arrived in a pile of leaves next to a Ghetto Gypsy bus. That's what it said on the front. I didn't have a plan for Missoula. I didn't know anyone who lived there or have any recordings lined up or really anything specific in mind at all. I just wanted to see the big sky. After 4 years of living in a room at the villa the size of a postage stamp, so small that I had to loft my bed in order to turn around, I longed to feel spaciousness. I still long for that. I drove in around dinner time and strolled into a clothing shop next to an extremely happening beer garden, a place of microbrews. It felt like Portland. I don't drink beer because of the gluten, but I thought, my people. The next day I went to a yoga class and the instructor gave me a 15-minute walking tour of downtown Missoula. He left me on a street full of local shops. I poked around a store called Upcycle, where everything is made out of something that used to be something else. The proprietor, Donovan, was sweet and chatty, and we got to talking about podcasts. He listens to them as he crafts. It's kind of his thing. I told him about Horizontal, how I'm finally making my own thing and actually putting it out into the world. How I'm making good finally on my mission to cultivate intimacy, 7 years after my revelation that this, indeed, is my thing. Oh, he said, are you here to interview my friend, Lindsey Doe? No, I replied, but I'd like to be. I half recognized her name, but I had a really good feeling about it. Lindsey, or Dr. Doe, is the creator of the wildly popular YouTube series Sexplanations, a doctor of human sexuality, and a certified clinical sexologist. She's the sex ed teacher you never had. She's the sex ed teacher you wish you had in high school. She's the sex ed teacher you wish you had in middle school. She's direct and clear, playful and enthusiastic. She's matter-of-fact, but fun about it, like a medical doctor who gets excited about cool anatomy. She's brilliant at breaking things down in a way we can all understand, without talking down to us, and imbuing it all with a certain kind of Hermione-like, academic, striped sweater sort of cheerfulness that I find entirely refreshing. In that way, she reminds me of one of my favorite educators of all time, my high school art history teacher, David Bewley, who would practically dance around while teaching on particularly exciting eras like the Renaissance, and create helpful acronyms like DIC, D-I-C, in order to help us remember the order in which columns were invented. As you can hear, I still remember. Dick, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. Thanks, David. Lindsey gave Donovan permission to give me her phone number. I texted straight away, and when I didn't hear back the whole evening, I chalked it up, figured it was too last minute. Many times my spontaneity works in my favor, and sometimes it doesn't. I decided to drive up to Glacier National Park the next day because it was the answer to the question, what is the most breathtaking place in Montana? I figured that I'd head across Idaho from there. I treated myself to a hotel in Whitefish, a fancy little ski town, because I was too tired to make it to Idaho that night. The following afternoon, determined to hit a hot springs on the way, I set my course for Quinn's. As I was poking around the shops in Whitefish and buying myself a plaid shirt because I was in Montana, so it felt important, the yoga teacher from Missoula messaged to say that I shouldn't go to Quinn's because it's man-made and just not as good. He told me to go to Jerry Johnson Hot Springs instead. Okay then, I changed my course. Google Maps routed me back through Missoula. 45 minutes north of Missoula, I got a text from Lindsey Doe asking if she'd missed me, and also saying, wait, what is it you do again? What's this with the robes? She sounded highly skeptical and yet game at the same time. I felt vaguely worried that she wouldn't like me. Stevie Bobie's in town right now, too, she said. She's the go-to YouTuber on lesbian sex. Would you want to record an episode with her? Yes. Okay, Lindsey said. I'll see if she's interested. I drove to Lindsey's house straight away, listening to her YouTube videos en route. I arrived back in Missoula just after sunset and recorded these episodes with Lindsey and Stevie back to back. And that is the story of how Lindsey Doe got horizontal. We have so much to learn from her. In the first part of our conversation, we talk about body hair, strong jawlines, Puritan sexuality, cognitive dissonance, the real definition of intercourse, anal sex, puckering, and happy trails. You know what you need to do, right? That's right. Come lie down with us.
This is Lena.
Hey, Lena. Lena is insistent upon getting horizontal with us. Oh my God, look at this.
You're so cute.
Look at this. So when you listen to the episode, if you hear a little like heavy breathing,
It's me.
it's Lindsey. Just so you know. Oh my God. You really,
Yep, she is. Mm-hmm.
You just want to be here with us. Okay. So the mic's up that way. If you want to talk into the mic, Lena, it's up there.
Okay. Lena.
Yes. I'm just letting her know.
You heard. Oh my gosh. What is your deal? You're never like this.
Wowza. I'm Lila, and I'm horizontal in Missoula, Montana. And you can say it in any way you like.
Do we want to get her off? Come here. Off. Off. Perfect.
She just gives us her back.
Mm-hmm. You can't see me. You can't tell I'm still here.
Because I can't see you. Yeah. So I'm off. So I was at a communities conference at Twin Oaks, which is the longest still running intentional community in the U.S. It's kind of in the woods, and it's a bastion of independent liberal thought in a red state.
Mm.
And the theme of the conference was diversity. And the main question was, why in fact, one of the workshops was called "Why is my community so white?" Because a lot of intentional communities are disproportionately white.
Yeah.
And there was a great panel actually later on where an incredibly well-spoken man said, the question is not, why are there so few Black people living in community? The question is, why are there so few people living in community at all? He's like, that's the question you should be asking. But there was a lot of really interesting stuff, like the idea of whoever sets the table determines who comes for the meal. So if you want a particular kind of diversity, you need to invite those people to set the table, to make the programs, to empower them to run things so that they can bring in the people that you want. And that might mean that they might not necessarily run things the way that you would. It means giving up some of that agency.
Yeah. That's hard, but so good.
Yeah. And then later on, actually, in my friend's nearby intentional community, G Palace, a bunch of us went down from neighboring intentional communities in Brooklyn to this conference. And she was having a dinner at G Palace, and one of her friends was saying, yeah, listen, that's why so many white people like Burning Man, because you need to suffer together. You need to have some adversity together. She's like, we've had that. We've had that adversity. And we've become communities because of it. So, we don't really need that. She's like, the only reason I would go to live in an intentional community is if it was entirely people of color.
Wow. Bye, Lena.
Bye, Lena. So at this conference, I had made an introduction and said, hey, I'm Lila. I'm from Hacienda Villa. It's a sex-positive intentional community in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And given the spiel, because they wanted a few data points. We're 14 members. We're not accepting new members currently. We have a lot of sex ed going on. We have workshops and seminars and stuff in our studio space. And so I did my little spiel. And then maybe later that day, a girl came up to me after lunch and said, oh, what you're doing is so exciting. I love that you're involved in that. I want to be a sex therapist. Do you know this woman, Lindsey Doe of Sexplanations? And I said, no, tell me about her. And she said, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. And she inspired me. I want to go. I'm going to go to school to be a sex therapist because of her. And then when I got back after the conference, I saw your call for an assistant and I couldn't remember her name. So if she is listening, get in touch.
Yeah.
Get in touch. Maybe you could work with Lindsey someday.
That would be fun. Especially as somebody who is attending conferences like that, because I don't know a lot about your community or the mission behind all of those programs, but it sounds like my kind of thing, my kind of people.
Yeah. And they're all different, all the communities that came have a different bent, a different intention. But I think they're aligned around common values of mutual support, self-actualization within the context of a loving, chosen family. And a lot of them are different from us in terms of their work sharing. So they are, in their income sharing model, they are having to really deal with it 24/7. Whereas in my community and in a few other communities in more urban areas where we don't do that, we have a little less cohesion because we go out of our home to have our work life and then we come back, as opposed to having to do it all within the context of our community. But lovely people. Yeah.
Sounds like it. You're lovely people.
Thank you. I usually want to know about what did you learn about sex growing up?
Sorry, I wanted to get more horizontal here. Okay.
Yes.
I think that the reason why I do this for a living is because it's one of the few subjects that I retain knowledge from. So, for example, we would be studying social studies or mathematics or art, and I could pick up the main lessons or even specific things that were fascinating to me, but nothing stuck to my brain matter like sex has.
Did you have sex ed in school as well?
Yeah, so I can remember being in, I think
Just a little Harley action in Missoula.
I can remember being in 5th grade, and they would have what's called Turtleneck Tuesdays.
Turtleneck Tuesdays?
Yes, and so the kids who had graduated before us would say, you wear a turtleneck on these days because you're going to want to be able to pull up this fabric around your face so you can hide your giggles, because you're going to be learning about all these sex things.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did everybody really wear a turtleneck?
I don't know. I mean, turtlenecks were in fashion at that time, so I don't think anybody had to prepare one way or another. And I don't know if I did, but I do remember that we would get things like little pamphlets, and I think we were separated by gender then. Then I switched schools, and I can remember having another class that was separated by gender, and we were asked to pick someone from our group, and we had to draw 2 body outlines of that person. So in big butcher paper, draw an outline of one of our classmates. So the girls would draw a girl twice, and then the boys would draw a boy twice, and we would give one of those drawings to the other group who was in another room, and then we all collectively had to draw body hair on these outlines. Are you following?
Yeah.
Okay. And I can remember this. I've described it in an episode of Sexplanations, where we could think about things like pubic hair because we were all giddy and nervous about those changes, but we would forget things like the hair that grows on the upper thighs or on the back or the buttocks or even the face. People, I think, would forget. And those were fascinating differences to me, and I'm a pretty hairy person.
Me too.
And, yeah.
Oh my god, I've had such struggles with it throughout my life.
Me too. Well, to me, it's not a struggle anymore. If my culture says that being hairless is a feminine thing, then that can be my culture. But for me, I really identify strongly with being a woman and being feminine, and I have a lot of pain if I remove my hair in any form. And so if that means that I have these really bushy legs or leg hair on my legs, then that's okay. That gets to become feminine for me.
Oh my god, I admire that so much.
Oh yeah?
Because I'm still totally brainwashed. Like, I don't like it. In fact, I thought I was going to go to a hot springs today. And I didn't want to be, publicly in this hot springs without shaving my legs and shaving my bikini line and shaving my underarms. And so I spent a fair amount of time, right? Because it takes time to do that and not cut yourself all over doing that today, because I don't feel especially sexy if I don't. And I had a boyfriend who was so into it, wanted me to grow it out, and I actually did. And I remember that he was very manipulative. He was potentially sociopathic. Like, he was really borderline dangerously narcissistic. And he was also incredibly exciting and charming and an amazing tango dancer and all these alluring things, right? And it was, for him, this sort of mark of dominance that I grew my leg hair out. I remember him saying that marked me as his more than anything else, because he knew that I didn't like it. I did it for him, which wasn't healthy, obviously.
I mean, yeah, I totally embrace growing your hair out if you want to do that.
I didn't want to do it. I didn't, because I knew that he found it desirable. I thought it was fun that he did because that's my natural state.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh my God, I remember actually, I think I asked my mom if I could shave my legs when I was maybe 9 or 10. I was already just super hairy and I was getting teased about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, you're too young. And so I had a visceral memory of this recently because I was listening to a podcast where somebody was talking about going through their parents' sexy books.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered finding my parents' Kama Sutra, which I had totally forgotten about. Something about me is that I have very little memory before the age of 12.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this flash of going into my parents' room and finding the Kama Sutra. And so I went into my parents' room, and the bathroom is just onto the left. And I snuck in there and got my dad's vat of pink shaving cream. Do you know this? This old school pink shaving cream, and his razor, and shaved my legs, and probably made a mess of it because they found out. But then they were like, okay, well, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. Because it was so mortifying to have the kids tease me about it.
That's not okay. Kids, stop teasing each other.
Oh my God, please stop. It's so bad.
And leg hair is so beautiful. Do you want me to show you my leg hair?
Yes, please.
Okay. Because then you can feel all better. See? It's like so long.
Yep.
And curly and black. And it's much hairier than most of the males in my life. And I don't care.
Yes.
I love it.
You're
and so if you want to go to the
awesome.
hot springs and rock a bush or hairy legs or armpit hair, whatever that is.
I'm
by
still
all means,
fairly... Oh, wait. I don't have a onesie on. Well, I'm still fairly bushy because I don't take away the triangle
Mm-hmm.
because I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still fairly... I don't know. Still fairly bushy, but...
Yeah. I like it. I like that you just showed me your pubic hair. We're close here in Horizontal with Lila.
That's right. In fact, I did a photo shoot recently for this Instagram account, Public Service Asses, where they do political statements over women's butts. And they're like, get them where they're looking already. Am I right?
Oh,
You know?
and you did one.
And I did one.
Your butt.
Yeah.
What was on your butt?
I can show it to you. It was fight for trans rights. They're fighting for us. Because I was wearing a little military cap that I found in their costume stores.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Felt really happy about that one. And there were all these women. I'm 35, just turned 35.
Me too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Ah!
I know, it's so exciting. I love finding people in my cohort.
Oh my God. It's so lovely. And there were all these women in their 20s, right, at the shoot. And they came up to me sort of conspiratorially and they were like, I love your bush. And I was like, what? What? You do? Because they were all totally hairless because that is so much the fashion. And that generation grew up watching porn, which I didn't.
Yeah, me neither.
So, they had the digital natives had access to the internet, went to the internet for all their questions, found porn really young. And yeah, I thought it was so interesting. They were like, yeah, it's so strong. It's such a strong statement. They were really into it. It was funny.
Yeah, I think I've always really liked body hair. For me, in a sexual way, it's a signal of sexual maturity. So I'm not opposed to anyone who removes body hair. I think that's such a personal decision. But I really like that I grow mine out. And to me, it looks like I am a woman rather than my girlhood self.
Mm-hmm.
Or on men, I'm really attracted to their armpit hair because it's like a sign that they are men and not boys.
Although my girlhood was pretty hairy, as I said.
Yeah, I mean, mine too, but
probably
when
not
I
my
think-
earlier adolescence.
yeah, when I guess what I'm saying is when I think of men and the things that I'm attracted to in them, it's like the veins in their forearms and armpit hair. I don't know why. Those are my...
I'm really into the
go-tos.
jawline.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's not a big thing for me.
Oh, I love it. Oh my god. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
I don't. I can't.
Okay, I understand. So one of the two showrunners, his name is David Benioff. He's married to Amanda Peet. He's just got this. He's just like my visual ideal, right? Where I see him, and they always have a little clip where they talk at the end of the episode, and everybody in my house knows because we all watch it together that I'm just gonna be like, and they're like, "Here's Lila's husband," you know. He comes on talking like, and it's the jaw and the salt and pepper beard. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so sexy.
Tom Hiddleston does that for me. Where, do you know who that is?
I think so.
Do you watch
I have a picture in my
Marvel
mind.
movies, Avenger movies,
Yes.
Loki?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yes. So I used to follow a Tumblr of Tom Hiddleston, and I couldn't do it anymore because it was so... it was just scrolling was orgasmic, and I couldn't get things done. And
Amazing.
I knew that it had become a problem because someone had done a cartoon drawing of Tom Hiddleston, and I had the same physiological response to the cartoon as I did the photographs. And I was like, whatever it is about the dimensions of his face or body that can be communicated in a cartoon is so direct to whatever's going on in my system that I cannot have this person in my life if I want to concentrate.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a guy that I met who has this same sort of combination of the jaw and there's something sort of closed-mouthed about both of them when they speak, and the shape, and I was just gaga for this guy who I still don't know who he is, even though I've had several encounters with him and had unprotected sex with him and had to take a morning after pill. Even though I've had, and had one weekend getaway with him, I have no idea who this man is at all. But just there's something about it that really does it for me. Right before I left, there was one other one. And this is very rare for me. There's not a lot of people like this. But I was in a taco joint around the corner from my house in Bushwick, and this Viking walked in, and I was like, oh my god, who is that? And my housemate was with me. It was the day I was driving my things over to the car that I borrowed to make this trip. And my housemate said, oh, he goes to the gym. I work out near him. You know him? So he said he's going to chat him up and bring him back to the house for me.
Aww.
And I'm like, bless you. I love you so much, Renee.
Sounds like I need to send you with condoms.
What? Send me with condoms?
Yeah.
I have condoms.
Okay.
What do you mean? Do you have special condoms?
Well, I mean, not particularly.
Okay.
But you were referring to lust being so intense that you had unprotected sex and you had to take the morning after pill. And I am thinking more about your infections. Yes.
I am actually usually super careful. And that was a long time ago. And a one-off incident. It was a long time ago. And yeah, I was so naive at that time. I had only really had protected sex because I was so uncomfortable with unprotected sex and nervous about it. But I was so overcome by this lust for this man that I thought that he would fall in love with me.
You thought he would fall in love with you because you lusted after him so strongly?
I thought he would fall in love with me because I had unprotected sex with him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That's... I was in my mid-20s, I think.
It happens.
Yeah. So no. I have plenty of condoms. Right now I'm traveling. I have had no sex on this trip. I am totally underfucked.
What?
And I am I am traveling with female condoms. I'm traveling with Sir Richard's condoms. I'm traveling with ribbed and unribbed, and I'm good.
I've got a bag of 150 different varieties on my kitchen table if you want to try out your luck with any of those.
Lovely. Thank you. What a great offer. I'll poke around. Did they show you how to put a condom on a banana in your sex ed class?
I don't think so. When I got to high school, I did have more sex education. It was through the biology class. And I don't remember much of it, but my dad, who was an art teacher at the same school, recalled that I told him how offended I was that we would have like spermicidal foam and all of these things like being passed around the room. And it was very shocking to me as an adult who is so sex positive that I would have a reaction to that.
Wow.
But I did almost up until I was 16 think that well, no, that's not possible. Probably 14 then. Think that I was going to wait until marriage to have sex. And so I was very deep into Puritan thinking and teetotaling and just anything to control.
What is that?
Teetotaling? It's like not just that you don't drink, but that you're
Crusading against it?
Yeah, kind of. It's just at the other end of if you put alcoholism on a spectrum.
Okay.
It's like total abstinence.
Vehement abstinence.
Yes. So we did not put a condom on a banana. I think we probably used an actual demonstration model.
Just got a little
Thirsty
dog.
dog.
A little thirsty dog, exactly. The Thirsty Dog. There must be a pub called the Thirsty Dog somewhere.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a beer company.
Did you grow up here in Montana?
I did not. I grew up in Ohio.
And was your family religious?
Yes. So my parents actually met at a church camp. And then we were raised in the church. My parents got divorced when I was in middle school, but I kept going to church camp and would go to church and try different churches, and whatever my boyfriend's church was, that was my church. And then my body went through puberty and had its own demands. Lena, come here. And my body wanted me to have sex, put things inside myself, touch other bodies. And so I changed my beliefs to match my behaviors, which is, I don't know if you've studied cognitive dissonance at all, the theory of cognitive dissonance.
I haven't studied it, but Jana did talk about it in one of her sex science socials. And they were talking about the authenticity model of when your beliefs match, or your values match your desires, match your behavior.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so cognitive dissonance, the theory of cognitive dissonance proposes that if your beliefs and your behaviors are in a conflict, that you're more likely to change your beliefs to match your behaviors than your behaviors to match your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So following through with that is you can only act your way into better thinking. You can't think your way into better acting. So my beliefs were wait until marriage. My behaviors were touch the penis. And therefore I changed my beliefs to match my behaviors to say, if there is a God, that God wants me to touch this penis.
Did you find any sort of tantric philosophy at that time that aligned with that?
Oh, hi.
That's Lena joining us again.
I think I was 15 when I had sex for the first time. And so Tantra was not in my world. This was even like just at the start of the internet. which you probably know because we're in the same cohort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to call us the Oregon Trail generation from that
We
article I
are.
read. Yeah.
And Lemmings. Did you ever play Lemmings?
Oh, no, I don't remember Lemmings.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. It's all so lemmings are, I think that they're a type of rodent, but they were portrayed kind of like ants, if I remember correctly. Lemmings are known for kind of just following each other and doing what the lemming before them does. So you would have lemmings that could blow themselves up, and then you would have lemmings that would jump, and lemmings that would, I don't know. They would each do a different task, and you're trying to weave your way through this world, and you use your community lemmings to get through the path by deciding who dies and who climbs and who falls. It sounds kind of morbid, but it's really fun to play.
Somebody must still have it somewhere.
I mean, Oregon
archival
Trail
gamer
was morbid too.
Oh yeah, you have just died of dysentery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we were the Oregon Trail generation. And the little turtle. Do you remember the turtle? Like the original programming that had the little green triangle?
No.
Do you remember that? Do you remember using the internet, the World Wide Web for the first time?
Most of my firsts seem to be kind of lost.
Oh,
so I don't.
Of 12.
Yeah, I don't really remember the first time. I do remember going over to a friend's house who had AOL and the disc, and we could dial up and go into chat rooms and talk with people. Who knows who they were?
What was your first screen name?
I don't know.
Mine was Anita XNO. Like ANITAXNO. Like I need a hug and kiss.
Oh,
ridiculous, right?
I love it. That's so cute.
Do you have more sex questions? I love sex questions.
Oh, I've got so many, but this was a family question.
Okay.
This was, what did you learn about relationships from your parents' relationship?
I don't remember a lot prior to age 12 either, and that was when my parents were together.
Mine too.
I recall a lot of fighting, but my mom says that there wasn't actually a lot of fighting.
Do you think it's you picking up on the energetics of it rather than verbal fighting?
Maybe. I think it's both. I think it's hard for parents to admit that there's fighting because they immediately worry about how they're perceived and what harm it could have done to a child.
Yeah.
I don't blame my parents at all for being two human beings in a relationship. I think they did a really great job. Let's see, what did I learn from? Oh, they both love art. And so we had a lot of nudity around the home, like sculptures of naked female bodies in the garden and in the living room, and paintings. My father is a professional photographer, so he would photograph women nude. I didn't see those until I was older, but I knew that it was happening and that there was nothing to be ashamed of, and that bodies came in all different shapes and sizes. And see, I also learned that masturbation was natural, that sex was natural, that I could ask questions and it was okay, that there might be some teasing. Like when I went to get my first bra, there was some teasing. But
I remember my mom didn't want to buy me my first training bra. She's like, you don't have anything yet. And I was like, don't say that. I wanted it. It really meant something to me.
Yeah, and I mean, as a parent now, I have 2 teenage daughters, and I've raised them for a couple years at least. So, and I've gone through those experiences with them. But there has to be some humor, and it's hard to know if that kid is going to receive it the way you intend to, or if the impact is going to be remembered as like, oh, I'm mortified. So I think my parents did a really great job. You know, I never felt ashamed about my sexuality. I never felt like I had to be cisgender, I had to be heterosexual, or that I even had to wait until marriage. No one told me to do that. That was all personal choice as far as I can recall. And oh gosh, I'm so grateful for my upbringing in that space that was held for me, not just around sexuality, but I think learning in general. There were very deeply instilled values of diversity and curiosity and acceptance of others. And so it just fostered this great environment for exploring sexuality.
It seems like such a balanced way to raise a human. And did they have any cognitive dissonance themselves over their church life? And then in my mind, it shouldn't be at odds with being comfortable with bodies and thinking that nudity isn't, as my dad says, nude is not lewd. But these days it seems like in many instances it is.
I mean, when I recall having conversations with them, I think that they had both detached from the church at that time. And I think that I went to church really to spend time with people. It was a social thing for me, not necessarily a spiritual thing. And so I don't think they experienced cognitive dissonance. I don't even think they experienced cognitive dissonance with trying to raise a young girl to be sex positive, but then not want her to do certain behaviors. I think they were very permissive. Probably, though, they were also naive. I think they didn't realize that I was sexually active until I was 22 and I moved in with a man. So,
what was that first time like for you? Was it with another virgin?
Having sex?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I'd love to change the narrative about it, right? Because when we say first time, most people are talking only about penetrative P and V sex, and that's not really how I want to think of sex anymore. I really want to broaden my own and the people around me's definition of what sex is. But when I think of the first person, the first cock I sucked, I certainly remember, and then the first person who gave me an orgasm from licking my pussy, I remember very well. But I don't think of that as my first time, you know?
Yeah. So my master's thesis is actually all about operationalizing that first experience of intercourse.
Operationalizing?
Yeah. It's when you take something that's abstract and subjective and you put it into more measurable terms. So, for example, if we interviewed even 10 people, their meaning of first time will have a difference from another person. Each individual is going to have a different experience. And so my thesis was a phenomenology of first sexual intercourse experiences among individuals of varied levels of sexual self-disclosure, because I wanted to understand what about the phenomenon of having sex for the first time is the same. How can we work toward marking that? If we don't want to use the term virgin, or we don't want to use the term penetration, what else is there to it? So, yeah, I remember touching a penis for the first time, but that is not when I think of first sexual intercourse experience. I think of being in a soccer field at night, sharing a sleeping bag with my boyfriend, and I don't know how my pants came off. I'm sure I took them off. I was the instigator in this situation. He had an erection. I took his erection and I just easily slipped it into my anus. Like, no problem.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Had you put other things in your anus before?
No. But my body wanted that so badly that it didn't care where it was going. And because at that time I was very committed to this idea of virginity, I didn't want to lose my virginity. I didn't want to have sex before marriage. And so for a lot of people in our generation, they would have anal sex as an alternative, not realizing that, one, virginity is a ridiculous construct to begin with that's all about making the female into property. And two, sex is sex, as in, like, you can get pregnant.
STIs.
Yeah, you can get pregnant from anal, which is very rare but possible. You can get all sorts of sexually transmitted infections, sometimes more easily because the rectal tissue is so absorbent. There are emotional consequences, et cetera, et cetera. And
There's a term for that, Lindsay. What is it?
oh yeah,
Catholic virgin? What is it?
yeah,
Is that what it is?
that sounds right. Catholic version, yeah.
Right. Sorry, go on. Phenomenology.
So yeah,
First
that
times.
was my first experience. And I don't know if your listeners are familiar with language, but when people hear me say intercourse, they often think inside. Lindsay's still referring to penetration, but inter means between. And so when I say first sexual intercourse experience, it's really the first sexual experience that you have with another person. So it's between you and someone or someone's else.
I'm so glad you defined that. I have a glossary on the website. So every time something comes up in an episode, I'll put it in the show notes and define it and put it in the glossary. So
Oh,
I'll put
I
that in
want
there.
to do that for sexplanations. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow, what a clever idea.
My gift.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What can I give you in return?
Well, I'll think about it.
Okay.
I love that. And I have not heard that definition of intercourse. And it makes me really happy. Because my quote unquote first time that I had been thinking of as my first time was very disappointing, Lindsay.
Oh, yeah, that's a common. Yep.
Yeah, Jana said the same. She said it's extremely common. But the first intercourse that I had was wonderful.
Oh.
It was wonderful. I was applying to theater school. I was applying to college. And I went to audition for colleges at DePaul University, or in Chicago. And one of the schools I auditioned for was DePaul. And then there was a consortium of other schools, and I did a joint audition for other schools, and which then I got into NYU and went to NYU. But I auditioned for DePaul and met this boy who I was quite smitten with, and he was extremely religious and was saving himself for marriage. Ostensibly is still saving himself for marriage. But he was really sensual, and I found him really sexy, and he had this enormous cock, and he said his friends used to call it HC, horse cock. They would, it was enough that he got a nickname for it, it was teased about it. And we flirted, we got together. I don't remember if we went out on a date, but I remember going to his dorm room, and he started licking me, and I was like, wow, this is the best thing that ever existed. This is amazing. And I had an orgasm. It was my first orgasm that wasn't self-induced by water, because I masturbated with the faucet, or by frottage, right? Rubbing. Oh my God. And I remember coming back, my high school acting teacher was a wonderful oversharer, and really brassy and just completely open about sex. So if I wanted to talk about sex, I was going to talk to her, probably not my mom, you know, even though my mom was open. And I came back and I told her, and she said, "Isn't it great?" And I said, yeah, it really is.
Aww.
And this goes back to the body hair thing. I was so embarrassed because I had a happy trail.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "That's what Roy Rogers was singing about. Happy trails to you." And then she sang, and then that was the end of the conversation.
Does everyone know what a happy trail is?
Oh, I might have to
Like,
define it.
if we're looking at the lack of body hair in culture right now, I bet there's a whole group of people who have no idea what you're referring to.
Absolutely. So I have a little line of hair that goes down the midsection of my abdomen and points down to my pubic hair.
And we call it a happy trail.
Happy trail. Right. I mean, it's in the name.
Mm-hmm.
It's happy.
Yeah.
Shows you the way.
It does. I like them. Of course I do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so my first intercourse, for me, that's such a beautiful reframing personally.
Oh, good.
There's
your gift.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I still know him. He said that about a year ago, he wrote me and he said, "Oh my God, there was this girl in a cafe I went to today that looked just like 17-year-old you."
Wow.
And he said he had such a stirring of emotion. It was so sweet.
I've never had that experience before, but now I'm really curious about it.
Which?
Seeing a person as I am now who looks like a crush I had then.
When you had them then.
Yeah.
I'm so astonished because everything I've ever read about anal sex has said lube, lube, and more lube.
Oh yeah, there is no lube. If I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure my whole body was just like, yep.
Yes, thank you.
Puckering is what they call it. When the anus actually kind of purses its opening the way that lips do for a kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And then just drawing in whatever is at the entrance. It was very easy and very comfortable. I had anal sex for a long time and have actually preferred it at points in different relationships because I can receive things so much more wide and deep than I can with my vagina because my body is pretty petite.
Really?
You can just kick her. Give her a little. Lena! Hi, Snorer. Yeah, so my vagina is, I would say, probably on the small side because I'm a petite person. And so to take in a large penis or toy or finger, etc., is sometimes challenging, whereas my rectum is much longer and can be stretched pretty decently.
Wow.
There isn't a cervix at the end of it that, I worried about getting inhaled. Not inhaled, impaled.
Yeah. Some positions just don't work for me because of that, even with a rather average size.
Yeah, you're tiny too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to think that I actually had a problem, that my tightness was a problem. And I remembered a gynecologist saying, yeah, you are actually a bit tighter than other women of your reproductive status. Which just made me more concerned, right? And more nervous. But I think it's mostly that I expected it to hurt. So my brain was like, no.
Yeah.
And my first vaginal penetration by a cock was with someone who I knew had codeine, and I asked him to give me some codeine because I was afraid that it would hurt.
I mean, we could call that self-care, I suppose.
It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt from what I recall. I also didn't bleed, so my hymen must have gotten broken at some earlier juncture.
Or it didn't break. Hymens don't have to break.
They don't?
No.
Huh.
No hymen should... I mean, so everybody has different ones, and sometimes they cover the whole opening, and you do have to figure out ways to create an opening. But the hymen openings can be stretched without doing any damage, without tearing, without bleeding, all of that. You don't have to break a hymen. It's a myth.
Sexplanations.
Sexplanations.
With Dr. Lindsey Doe. Thank goodness.
There's a whole episode on hymens.
I will link to it.
I turn my mouth into a vagina.
Excellent.
But I think that's great that you didn't bleed. The downside of taking codeine or doing some sort of numbing agent is that you no longer get a read from your body what's good or not good.
Oh, I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think I'm recommending it because I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy the experience. I'm only recently, in the past 4 years perhaps, starting to even feel more sensation internally. It just felt like a big, numb cavern. Not big. A small, numb cavern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you gone to Vagina Monologues or read the book?
Yeah. Because I was in theater school. So I saw it several times. I read it several times.
Ever perform it?
No. No, but I'd love to.
That can be really healing. It was really healing for me to see it for the first time and learn more about my physiology from hearing the experiences of others. And then about 15 years after I saw it, I performed a piece and it was so emotional. I can remember coming to tears on stage in a very authentic way. And that was also really healing.
I saw her play for young women, Emotional Creature. Her play of young women, basically.
You saw Eve Ensler perform?
No,
you saw the play.
I saw the play. Yeah. At Signature Theater. It was gorgeous. And it was so, so moving. My friend, Dr. Hazel Grace, was inspired by the Vagina Monologues to ask, where are the cock monologues? And then she facilitated this event that had cock owners, self-identified cock owners, speaking about their cocks to each other and witnessed by people who didn't identify with having a cock or just wanted to witness. And then she wound up turning it into the Cock Project and the Pussy Project. And I got to experience it at Connection Camp over the summer. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful, particularly for me to witness, because I've been fortunate in that I live in this community where we talk a lot about sex, a lot about relationships, a lot about most things. But I realized that I had never heard a man speak extensively about his experience with his cock. I definitely never heard men speak together to each other about their cocks. And it was so moving.
We had a penis monologues here of men who, this is before the trans movement, so I'm pretty sure they were all cis men who wrote their own monologues and performed their own monologues about having penises. And I had a similar experience to yours where it was just like, wow, this is happening. And it's healing for them and it's healing for me. And I love hearing these stories and I want more of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
She should come do the Cock Project in Missoula.
That would be
And the
fun.
Pussy Project. Yeah. Yeah. I could see it happening here. It'd be beautiful.
So is there anything you want me to ask you about love, relationships, sex, intimacy that no one's asked you and you're just dying to talk about?
I generally like it when people follow their curiosity. So you can really ask me anything that you're curious about, if you're curious about anything. And then something that I haven't talked about is my first successful threesome that I had just before I left. And the whole party surrounding it.
Sounds lovely.
Hear about that?
Have you been playing on Tinder on your travels?
Oh, right. So I got on OkCupid right before I left New York, just to kind of see what's out there. I hadn't been. I'm about 5 months out of my about 1 year monogamous relationship. And I hadn't done any online anything. And then right before I left, I said, let me get on and just kind of see what's out there. And out of, the myriad messages I've received, there was maybe one that I can think of that I found interesting. And then one person that I matched with that actually I had seen him. I'd seen him and desired him at this Brooklyn market.
Wow.
He's a maker. And I wrote him, but he hasn't written me back.
Oh. Come on, person.
Come on, we matched. You're into it. And so then I thought, well, OkCupid, maybe I need something a little bit more immediate while I'm traveling. And so I got on Tinder a few days ago when I landed in Missoula. And then you actually you can't just change your location on Tinder for some reason.
Why?
You can't do it. It's not a thing. So what you have to do is kind of trick Tinder. So I had to go onto Facebook and tell Facebook that I'd moved to Missoula, Montana, and then make it so that only I could see it.
Oh, interesting.
So that it would tell Tinder.
There's got to be a workaround for that.
Well, that is the workaround.
Oh, interesting. But no, because people use Tinder to go to other places and hook up.
Maybe that's the paid version? Like the plus version?
I'll look into it and get back to you.
Okay.
And then that way we can get you laid.
Important information. Oh my God.
Or you could disconnect your Tinder from your Facebook, which is what I've done. You can't see your common friends anymore, but you can still play. You can play with the app and it will follow you where you go.
And then it will follow you?
Mine does. I played it in Minneapolis. I played it in Atlanta. Played it in Missoula.
Like a game. It really is like
It
a
is
game,
a
isn't
game.
it?
It's so fun. And I don't mind thinking of it as a game. I hope other people do too, that they don't take it so seriously.
Well, it definitely gamifies it, right? It's like, it's a match. Like you've hit the 777,
Yeah.
you know? And you're like, yes. But I think that does lead to some people just using it to rack that up and then not connecting with people. Obviously, not everybody's going to be that way, but... So I fired it up, and I just didn't really find anything that attracted me.
Maybe we'll play
thus
it
far.
later.
Okay.
We can do it as a team.
Okay. You'll see a little bit of my... So I have called it pickiness, and whenever I've said, like, hey, to somebody who's asked, I'm just not attracted to that many people, they've said, oh, you're picky. And I didn't know if that was really the right word.
Selective?
Well, maybe it's just that I have this really high level of sexual disgust.
Are you saying disgust? Disgust?
Yeah.
Interesting. Sexual disgust.
What can you tell me about sexual disgust?
Nothing, because that sounds like an oxymoron to me.
No.
I'm like, nothing about sex is disgusting.
No.
But that's not true at all.
Well, that's not what I mean either. It's...
What do you mean? Tell me about sexual disgust.
I mean, when I look at most men and imagine that they want to have sex with me, my reaction is repulsion.
Oh, that's got to be something else. Is that the definition of sexual disgust?
I thought it was.
Is this a word concept you've come across?
Yes.
Oh, well then I need to do more research.
But maybe I also need to do more research. So we will do research.
Okay. So okay, if that's sexual disgust, that is the name of the concept, then it sounds like it. What I'm thinking of is that you're projecting onto them an objectification of yourself.
No, because I like to be objectified by somebody who I want, by somebody who I desire.
Okay.
What are we finding?
This says Tinder users have a lower level of sexual disgust than most of us.
All the episodes in Season 2 have been edited by Chad Michael Snavely. Peruse his roster of podcasts on chadmichael.com. My intro music was created by the nicest rock star on the planet, Alan Markley, Plastic Cannons on the Instagram. My lovely cover art was drawn by Shauna Shea, SHANA, Find her on 99 Designs. Hire these people if you can. Until next week, when Dr. Doe and I discuss the Tinder game, sexual disgust, mate pools, and demisexuality, as well as the matching hypothesis, the t-shirt experiment, chemistry, polytana, and sushi on naked bodies, may you have someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. Thanks for lying down.
This is a very peculiar system you have.
A peculiar system?
I travel the country with a mic on an arm. Yeah. Share a pillow, bathrooms, and blankets.
I know. I've only done it over the blankets, but I understand that you are chilly.
Oh, I can do it over the blankets too, now that I've cranked the heat.
Because there's a lot of blanket sound.